I'm optimistic about us getting this done because it's the right thing to do. We've seen leaders from both parties indicate that now's the time to get comprehensive immigration reform done. And part of what we discussed is the importance of getting it done precisely because we do so much business between our two countries. Frankly, we've put enormous resources into border security. There are areas where there's still more work to be done. Some of it, by the way, is not simply securing the United States from illegal traffic. Some of it is also improving the infrastructure, which we talked about, for commerce to be able to come in smoothly, which creates jobs and helps our businesses both in the United States and in Mexico.
46 past the hour. Joining us now, senior editor for the National Review, Jay Nordlinger. This month's issue critiques the Gang of Eight's immigration bill. The cover story is titled Rubio's Folly and says in part, quote, this: conservatives looked hopefully to Rubio as their representative on the Gang of Eight, someone who would make sure its plan didn't turn out to be a call for de facto open borders. Early on, Rubio may well have seen that as his role, but he is now much less the conservative ambassador to the Gang of Eight than the gang's ambassador to conservatives. Okay, Jay, welcome back to the show. Are you surprised what's happening with Marco Rubio, and if you could explain more what his folly is?
Well, National Review is against this bill. We want immigration reform, but this is a great big bill with a lot in it and too many loopholes, we think. It's 800-some pages, and we think this is bad policy for the country. The politics may be something else. Who knows about the politics? We at our magazine are big fans of Marco Rubio. I think we helped him get elected down in Florida. But we think he's in error on this. And I have a feeling he might be a little bit nervous about it as well.
Why do you say that?
He said the other day that the bill would struggle to get through even the Senate, and if the bill is currently written, would not get through the House. I imagine he knows. I imagine that's right.
What's wrong with the bill?
Well, in a nutshell...
Specifically, you said there's some specific issues in the bill. What are they?
Well, it seems like amnesty with a promise of enforcement, law enforcement. And we've had this before. We have the experience of the 1986 bill, Simpson-Mazzoli, as we used to know it. And so some of us feel a little bit like the famous Charlie Brown cliche having to do with Lucy and the football. We've seen this before. We don't want to get suckered again. And a lot of us think that it would be better to do the border enforcement and other law enforcement provisions first, things that both parties can concert on, get a handle on it, and then discuss some sort of generous amnesty. I'm for the enforcement first and the amnesty second, and I'm afraid this is the other way around. But this is a very difficult issue for conservatives, and I think everyone, because there are all these, I would say, competing American values. Wouldn't you? There's, on the one hand, there's generosity, inclusion, hospitality. We're a nation of immigrants.
Who we are.
Emma Lazarus and the new Colossus. I remember Alan Simpson. I was thinking of this morning. Back in the old days, during the first amnesty, he'd say, no fair quoting the Statue of Liberty. He would say, no fair quoting. But yet, there is a certain romanticism in America about immigration. I have this romanticism myself, although I think I've been sobered over the years. And on the other hand, there's the issue of the rule of law. What do we do about a welfare state coupled with mass immigration? What about the issue of assimilation?
So looking again at the bill, Marco Rubio himself admits that the current immigration bill can't pass the House and says he's willing to work to fix this. In a Wall Street Journal op-ed this morning, he writes in part, quote, this: since my colleagues and I introduced immigration legislation, intense public scrutiny has helped identify shortcomings and unintended consequences that need to be addressed. Many concerned citizens have gone a step further and offered specific ideas to improve it. This kind of constructive criticism is a positive force that should always be welcomed in the political process. For those who believe the road ahead for illegal immigrants is too generous or lenient, Congress will have a chance to make it tougher, yet still realistic. But defeating it without offering an alternative cannot be the conservative position on immigration reform. That would leave the issue entirely in the hands of President Obama and leave in place the disastrous status quo. Does he have a point, Jay?
Oh, yes, of course. There has to be something. I think there are parts of this gigantic bill that can be taken and worked on. There are portions that a lot of people agree on. If E-Verify, for example, is a good thing, let's have it.
Let's do it.
If visa tracking is a good thing, why not?
Do it.
If securing the Mexican border, why not? And these are things we could have had years ago.
Yeah.
But this is a so-called comprehensive bill and includes what a lot of us regard as amnesty first. And we've been down this path before, and we think we ought to learn from experience.
Sam?
You know, from the vantage point of a Democrat, what you're saying is absurd. For starters, the border is probably more secure now. Now, obviously, the recession has helped with limiting border crossings, but it's probably more secure.
It's two-edged.
Yes, but it's more secure now than maybe at any time in our history. There's been countless resources poured into it, and what you're saying is we should do more of that before we do what you call amnesty. Now, secondly, we just had an election. This was litigated very much during an election. I think the results are pretty obvious and clear. The voters, including Hispanic voters, by large margins, supported this, and they continue to support in public opinion polls. So, what would you say to that? I mean, wasn't this just litigated? Haven't we had a referendum on whether to do a comprehensive package versus piecemeal approach?
I don't think all 867 pages were voted on. The American people have all sorts of views, and polls tell you different things. And if politicians cross the electorate, they will be punished at the polls. Usually, politicians, especially office holders, are pretty good at calculating their own interests. So it depends on where you live, who the voters are, what your district is, what the state is. I think everybody wants some sort of immigration solution. There's a sense, there's an attitude, and I have some of it myself. Let's just get this done. It's a long-standing and festering problem. Let's just do something. Get it off our plate, and let's just call immigration done. That is a very strong temptation, but I think it should be resisted. I think there's very much the attitude, again, I feel a little of it myself. You remember what Nancy Pelosi said about the health care bill. We have to pass it in order to know what's in it. Well, there's a lot in this bill, and I think that the thing should be done judiciously, and people ought to know what's in it. And what we who are journalists care about, and I suppose most people care about, is what's best for the country, not what's best electorally for a particular party. If Republicans are wrong, according to popular opinion, they'll pay for it.
No.
They have.
Well, there you go.
So the cover story...
But that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that's so. Well, there's always another one coming up.
Fair enough.
The cover story of this week's National Review, Rubio's Folly. Interesting. Is that the picture, Alex? Okay. See, there's some websites now saying the picture was edited to take out certain people that don't actually work into the narrative. There's Grover Norquist. Do you agree with that? Because he supports a pathway. Is there?
This is what magazines do.
Good.
It was a crowded picture.
But you need.
There's a guy reaching in stage
That's okay.
left. Is it?
Yeah.
There are other senators. I think Senator Flake is in there. There are people in the background. And dear Grover Norquist is in the background, too. We wanted a clearer image. We wanted the three senators.
What you should have done is taken out everyone else and just let
So you post the boy Rubio. You cooling on him? He peaked a little too early, maybe?
Oh, no. Look, there are a lot of issues in this country, and Rubio is quite a force and a dynamo. And we'll see any excuse to put him on the cover, even when the cover's negative. He's a pretty photogenic fellow.
Well,
we know what our interests are.
I got you on that. But you're challenging him. We'll see if he measures up. All right, still ahead on Morning Joe as tuition rises and student loan debt